Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. While Spider-Man is often known to be one of the most popular superheroes of all time, his fame and glory reached new levels in recent years. In fact, in 2018 alone, fans would get excited about the legendary web-slinger all over again wherever he would show up. His new animated series got a second season, he had his big MCU moment in Infinity War, well, maybe not one of his proudest, he released one of the best PS4 games, and even brought out a spin-off film that's definitely not the best superhero film, but does contain the most beloved superhero couple. But finally, to cap off this year of the Spider-Man, Spidey would bring out many other Spider-People and have them all come together in one big animated feature, with Miles Morales as the star. Which is a pretty rare occurrence to see a major animated film based on a superhero comic come to the big screen. Sure, we got the more satirical ones, but stuff like Big Hero 6 and Batman Mask of the Phantasm are not the kind that would be a common sight in animation. But now that we're going into the Spider-Verse, will the movie do more than whatever a spider can? Or will this make people love Spider-Man as much as J. Jonah Jameson? Let's find out. The story. What does it take to be a Spider-Man? That is the big question that Miles Morales would have to ultimately ask throughout this movie. While not in the direct meaning, the story presents a coming-of-age tale that would focus on Miles and how he would learn to become a hero. However, he would soon discover that it's not as glamorous as it sounds, especially when the package would also come with sacrifices. The purpose of the story is to create a blend of action and heart, where it would deliver a huge supply of strong superhero action, which I'll get into more later, and also give a focus to the character arc of Miles, where he would experience a fresh take on Uncle Ben's old saying without being afraid to get into the dark themes to show how the stakes can get really high. With the mixture of these two elements, they help make the movie feel highly engaging in order to give what people would look for from both a superhero film with all the crazy fight scenes, and from a good film with well-crafted characters that can feel relatable and believable, on top of being set in a New York City where it is familiar, but given a unique twist where alternative universes would come into play. However, that is only the core of the feature. In order for the film to have its unique voice with that story, it would also feature some comedy which doesn't always hit its mark, but the jokes are mostly funny with its use of subtlety and the way it would pay homage to the legacy of Spider-Man, where it would not be afraid to poke fun of itself at times, but would prominently highlight the impact the web-slinger made in our culture.
I saved the city, fell in love, then I saved the city again and again and again. Look, I'm a comic book, a cereal, I did a Christmas album, and a so-so popsicle.
But much like Miles himself, the story can face a few setbacks where it doesn't nail it on the first shot, most namely with how it starts and how it ends. It would begin slow with the goofy fish-out-of-water take of Miles and his new school, but it does pick up quickly when Peter Parker enters the scene. As for how it ends, that's when the plot would become a bit predictable by depending on old coming-of-age and superhero tropes to get to the grand finale. In fact, considering how one of the directors is Peter Ramsey, the plot structure can be easily comparable to Rise of the Guardians, along with the parallels between Jack Frost and Morales, but instead of childhood legends, the theme would be all Spider-Man. But even with those little problems, the execution helped make them forgivable by delivering a powerful story that can honor Spider-Man in any and all forms. The animation. One of the biggest goals the feature would set itself is to visually be unlike any other animated feature. Not only did it succeed on that mission, but it also made itself the kind of film that would push animation to a whole new level. More than any other movie based on a comic, it would literally push the narrative of this being a living graphic novel. While it is computer animated, it does present a look that feels almost 2D with its flat textures and lines that feel like they were drawn onto the picture, on top of a layer over the movie to give the illusion like each frame was printed the same way as a comic book. It not only helps make the colors be more prominent, but to also give the movie almost a psychedelic feeling. There would also be times when it would present a lot of other comic elements to emphasize that feeling, like speech and narration boxes would appear, the effects would be a lot more stylized to step back from any realistic details, and add some extra lines to emphasize the actions, especially with the spider senses.
Hey kid, you're like me. How?
On top of that, the film would also include a variety of designs. The main ones stay true to the modern detailed comic look, but then you also have other styles mixing in, like anime with Penny, a Looney Tunes cartoon with Spider-Ham, and a gritty film noir with, well, noir. But in terms of creativity, the biggest credit with the designs would have to go with the villains, delivering a fresh and more intimidating look to show how they don't play around and are even ready to kill when necessary. But then you have the action, which as a superhero movie would have to be the highlight of the feature. And with its prominently unique style, the movie can manage to deliver scenes at a fast pace in order to make them highly intense and a lot of fun with the way they would play around with the setting and the characters. However, as much as it is amazing to watch, there is one detail that I would like to question. While the character animation is great by keeping their movements down to earth while playing a lot with the character's special abilities, why are their movements choppy like a stop-motion film? You know what I mean, right? Like, look at how they move here.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Sure, it does look cool, but all I'm asking is just, what's the point in the movie's context of having this style? Like, I get why the Lego movie or the Peanuts movie would do this, but what does it do in order to enhance the comic book or Spider-Man experience? It's almost like the movie would focus so much on having its animation be unique that it would start doing things that don't necessarily make sense. But does it ruin any of the visual experience? Absolutely not. In fact, this can barely even count as animation. This would fit more in the category of innovation. The characters. When there's a movie that contains a lot of Spider-Mans, then one should expect that it would be all about the Spider-Mans. The characters are the ones who have to carry the whole feature, and thankfully, they managed to pull that off very well along with some great and entertaining voice acting. However, some characters do provide a unique role to the feature. With that said, let's begin with the main Spider-Man, Miles Morales, a teen who wants to figure out who he truly is. But when he got bitten by a radioactive spider, he would have no choice but to become a Spider-Man, which is actually more problematic for him due to his difficulties to adjust to his new powers and having his dad taking on a J. Jonah Jameson role of being the non-supervillain against Spider-Man. While he would eventually get some help from his other dimensional comrades, he would only learn about who he wants to be by himself, and even through the darker times, he would understand what it would truly mean to be a hero. The other prominent Spider-Man of this film is actually Peter Parker, but not the one you're familiar with. This Parker is actually more of a Han Solo type mentor, where he's more washed up as an older and less fit version of the hero with a personality that's a lot more snarky and cynical. As he would teach Miles the ropes of being a proper Spider-Man, he would also learn about getting that spark back on what it means to be Spider-Man and the responsibilities that come with it.
I love this burger, so delicious. One of the best burgers I've ever had. You have money, right? I'm not very liquid right now.
I think you're gonna be a bad teacher.
As for the rest of the Spideys, well, this isn't really the Spider-Man team, but rather Miles, Peter, and friends. Characters like Noir, Ham, and Penny would present themselves as a different version of Spider-Man and can have some enjoyable moments, but their role isn't as significant beyond that. At the most, there is Gwen Stacy, who would have a slightly bigger role by hinting that there might be a thing between Miles and Gwen, but her part is mostly like the others as a side Spider-Man. This would be the main problem with the characters. There is a bit of an issue of quantity over quality, so there might be some disappointments if one would expect more out of someone beyond Miles and Peter. The same can be applied to the villains, like the main one, Kingpin, where he does seem quite threatening by his massive size and brutal strength, but as a character, he would feel underdeveloped for having his side of the story feel like an afterthought. He does have all the right materials to be great, including a good motivation, it's just his structure wasn't well put together. As for the other villains, while there are a lot of familiar ones like Green Goblin, Tombstone, and Scorpion, they act more like Kingpin's goons who only appear in just a couple of scenes. The only exceptions that play a bigger part include Doc Ock, who created the accelerator for Kingpin, and Prowler, who mainly hunts for Miles. But while they aren't as prominent, each character can leave a strong impact to the feature and help make the Spider-Man experience all the more awesome. Words like amazing, spectacular, and ultimate have already been defined about Spider-Man. But for this one, it's gonna be hard to find just one word to describe how great this movie is. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is an animated spectacle that not only succeeds in innovating the visual medium, but also taking a new step in the superhero genre. With a well-crafted story, strong characters, and revolutionary animation, it delivers an unforgettable experience that can even surpass the achievements of the other Spider-Man films. Granted, it's not a perfect movie with a few minor issues, but this is the kind of film that when it does something good, it does it in an unforgettably amazing way. If you enjoy comics and superhero movies, or if you want to see a truly unique animation experience, then this is a must-watch. I am serious when I say that this is an experience that must be seen to be believed. However, it wouldn't be an experience good enough for the AniMat's seal of approval. I'm just kidding, dude! Oh man, you should have seen the look on your face.
I ain't worried about a loss or a new friend. Never worried about a fraud or a new biz. Lost love, I ain't worried about a bra since, yeah. Set it back.
Officer, I love you.
Wait, what?